Howdy there, math students. So we just got done learning about part-to-part ratios and proportions, and today we're going to be working with part-to-whole ratios and proportions. And our I can statement is, I can solve part-to-whole ratios and proportions. So this is going to be very similar to what we just got done doing, but for the most part, you're just going to be given different pieces of information from the problems, but the way you work with those pieces of information will be very similar. So let's start with a warm-up. The two warm-ups are going to be a lot like what we just got done with the part-to-part ratios and proportions. So let's read warm-up A. The ratio of songs on Addie's iPhone to Cameron's iPod, or they both say iPod, I can't read, is 7:4. Okay, let's go ahead and write this down. 7:4. So the 7 is Addie's and the 4 is Cameron's. If Addie has 9,492 songs on her iPod, how many does Cameron have? Okay, so we know that Addie has 9,492. We don't know Cameron's. We can write an X there if we want. A lot of times we're making a third row for the whole, but in this particular problem, there's no talk about the whole. We don't really need to know it, so I'm just going to leave that off. So we can either figure out the scale factor, which would mean that we need to figure out how 7 becomes 9,492 using multiplication or division. So to figure out kind of that fact family, what 7 times what equals 9,492, we would divide. So 9,492 divided by 7 equals, and yes, I am going to use my calculator here. 9,492 divided by 7, 1,356. So this number is the scale factor. That's what you're multiplying by, 1,356. So that means we need to multiply the 4 by that same 1,356. Also a good idea just to put that in our square. That's kind of like our code to ourselves that, hey, this number is important. This is our scale factor. So now 4 times 1,356 is going to give us 5,424. So 5,424 is how many songs Cameron has on his iPod. So I'll just write songs here. Now, is there another way to find out this same solution? Absolutely. Could we cross multiply? Okay, let's do that really quick for practice. 4 times this number and then 7 times x. Let me set those up. I'm going to do that way over here, okay? So we have 7x equals 4 times that. 9,492. Okay, let's go ahead and multiply that out. 4 times 9,492 is going to equal 37,000 and change. So 37,968. Now I know I'm going to have to get rid of that 7 by dividing it, so I'm going to go ahead and divide that on my calculator right now. And that's going to give us x equals 5,424. So whether you want to figure out the scale factor like this, or whether you want to cross multiply, use the butterfly method and do it like this, both answers should give you that same answer. Both methods. I can't talk today, but we're just going to keep trying, okay? Let's do problem B, warm up B. For every $3 Noah makes, Nicole makes $5. Okay, so we've got 3 and 5, and we have Noah and Nicole, so I can't get away with just writing an N, can I? I'll say Noah, and then I'll write Nick for short. If they make $196,008 together, how much does Nicole make? Okay, so if they're making this together, now we're not talking about parts anymore. We're talking about the whole. So I better make myself a third row for the whole. And to figure out what number goes here for the whole, I'm just going to add the two numbers that are in that original ratio. So we've got 3 plus 5 equals 8. All right, so do we know what numbers go here? No, but we do know that the whole over here should be 196,008. That's what we got from the problem. So now we just have to figure out what to write in our ratio, in our proportion there. So to figure out what the 5 becomes and what the 3 becomes, we need to figure out the scale factor. What did we multiply or divide 8 by to get to 196,008? Well, it's definitely multiplication because the number got bigger, so it wasn't division. How can we figure out that factor that should go there? 8 times what equals 196,008? Well, to figure that out, again, we're working with that same fact family kind of idea. We're going to take 196,008 and divide it by 8. I'm just going to write that down. 196,008 divided by 8 equals, and yes, calculators are very helpful for this, divided by 8, and we get 24,501. Okay, so that's our scale factor right there. So just to be sure, you could go back and double check. 8 times 24,501 should give us that number, and it does. So I'm just going to write times 24,501. So that's our scale factor. So we have to multiply 3 by that number, and we have to multiply 5 by that number to figure out what's going to go in these. But actually, we don't really need to know what Noah makes over here. What the question asks is how much does Nicole make? So let's just figure out what goes on the bottom, because that's where Nicole is there. So let's take our 5 from here and multiply it by the scale factor, 24,501. It looks like Nicole is making 122,505. All right, so that is the answer to your question of how much Nicole makes. If we needed to find out how much Noah had made, we would have just multiplied that by that same 24,501, by that same crazy big scale factor. Okay, let's continue on and start talking about these part to whole ratios. The problems below will sound familiar. They're going to be very similar. They're slightly different because, well, you use the same concepts and skills to solve them. As with all ratio and proportion problems, be sure to find the scale factor for each problem. So the main difference is they're going to be giving you more of the wholes and fewer of the parts. So before we get to those, let's do a thought question. If 5 out of every 9 chips is yellow, like we're kind of thinking about those red and yellow two-color chips, right? So if 5 out of 9 of them are yellow, what's the ratio of yellow chips to red chips? Okay, so if we did yellow on top and red on bottom, and we know 5 out of every 9 is yellow, so I'm going to put a 5 here. We don't know what goes here. They're asking us ratio of yellow to red, but they don't tell us how many red. But they do tell us, what is this 9? That's the whole. That's the total number, right? Whole and total work the same way in this setting, okay? So if the whole is 9, we're going to write that there. Now, what do we do to these two numbers to get the whole? We add them together, right? 5 plus whatever that is going to always equal this. So using that, we can just subtract 9 minus 5, and we know this is going to equal 4. And you can always go back and double check yourself. 5 plus 4 equals 9. Okay, you got it. All right, so in this type of problem, we call 5 the part. And we call 9 the whole. So we need to find the other part. Okay, so again, whole and total number mean the same thing in this setting. And when we're trying to find this other part, like the circled one right here, we're going to use subtraction. So if you have a part missing and if you know one part and you know the whole and you need to find the other part, you're going to use subtraction to find it. Let's do an example. Okay, we got Mandy and Amy here. Mandy and Amy have a collection of rocks. Mandy found 3 out of every 4 rocks in the collection. Okay, let's write that down really quick. Mandy found 3 out of every 4. Okay, so Mandy found 3. Now, did Amy find 4? No, that's not what it says. It says Mandy found 3 out of every 4. So 4 is actually the total. So I'm going to put 4 all the way down here. Together, they have found 200 rocks. Okay, so that's going to go over here in this column. Is it going to be one of the parts, or is that going to be the whole? If they found them together, that's going to be one of the parts. No. If they found them together, it's going to be the whole, right? Okay, so let's write 200 there. And now it says how many have each of them found. Okay, so let's start finding our missing pieces of information. We've got 3 missing pieces of information here. First of all, what's going to go here? And I kind of gave you guys a hint up here as to how to find that. The part plus the part have to equal the whole. So if you have a part and a whole, you're going to use subtraction to figure that missing part out. 4 minus 3 equals 1. You could also ask yourself 3 plus what equals 4. Okay, so now to figure out this part of the ratio, we're just going to have to determine the scale factor. So 4 times what equals 200? Maybe you know that off the top of your head, maybe you don't. If you're not sure, we're going to use division to find out. You're going to take the bigger number and divide it by the smaller number. So you're just going to put in your calculator or do by hand 200 divided by 4. I'm going to use my calculator. Do I better turn it on first? There we go. 200, try again. 200 divided by 4 is 50. So that is our scale factor. I'm going to put it in a box. I also like to write it here. And now we can just do both of these numbers times 50 to figure out the ratio over here. So 3 times 50 is going to be 150, and 1 times 50 is going to be 50. Always a nice idea to double check all your math. Make sure that number plus that number equals that number. If it does, then chances are you're on the right track. So, and now I'm going to go back to my word problem and read that final question. How many have each of them found? Oh, okay, so they want to know how many Mandy's found and how many Amy has found. So Mandy has found 150 and Amy has found 50. We should probably write rocks, right? Oh, we should also probably spell rocks correctly. There we go. Okie dokie, let's go to the next example. Example B. There are 1,050 students at Elk Ridge Middle School. 4 out of 7 of them have a smartphone. Okay, let's start writing stuff down. 4 out of 7. So we're going to write our ratio. Is it 4 to, well, we know that 4 out of 7 have a smartphone. So that 4 is one of the parts. But is the 7 another part or is it a whole? Yeah, that 7 is the whole. So if you said whole, good work. So 4 have a cell phone. How many don't? We don't really know. I'm just going to say don't. You might write it differently. That's totally fine. But then down here, that's definitely the whole. Okay, so 4 out of a total of 7 have smartphones. How many students have a smartphone? Okay. Oh, there's the other information we need. Total number of students who go to the school. So if that's the total number, we're going to write it down here by the whole, okay? 1,050. So that's all the information the problem gives us. Let's go ahead and start putting these puzzle pieces together and figuring out what goes where. So how do we figure out what number is there? 4 plus what equals 7? Or you could say 7 minus 4. It's going to be a 3. So as far as the part to part goes, 4 students have smartphones and 3 students don't. The ratio of 4 have and 3 don't is the same thing as saying 4 out of 7. So if you were saying it as part to part, it'd be 4 to 3. If you're saying it as part to whole, you're going to say 4 to 7. And this is what it's going to look like. And now we just need to figure out how to get these numbers over here. In fact, we specifically need to know how many students have a smartphone, which is going to be this number here. So what can we use to figure that out? Let's find our scale factor using this right here. How does a 7 turn into 1,050? I have no idea, but I do know that I can go 1,050 divided by 7 and it'll tell me. So let's do that with our calculator. 1,050 divided by 7 gives us 150. So this right here is our scale factor. So that means to figure out how many students at Elk Ridge have a smartphone, I just need to do 4 times 150. 4 times 150 gives me 600. So 600 students have a smartphone. All right, and that's how you do that. Let's go to example C. A group of 7th graders voted for their favorite sport. 1 in 8 voted for hockey. Okay, so 1 person out of a total of 8 voted for hockey. So you have 1 for a part, then we don't know what for a part, and then 8 for the whole. So let's see, for hockey, against hockey, well, not really against. I should say hockey, and then other. How about that? 1 person out of 8 voted for hockey, And then the other however many students voted for something else. So I'm writing O for other. Again, label these however makes sense to you, okay? But that 8 definitely needs to be in the whole category. What else do we know? We know that there were 256 votes cast. So that's a total number. We're going to write that in the whole category over here. All right, so first of all, let's figure out what goes in this circle here. 1 plus what equals 8? Plus 7. Great. Okay, now we need to figure out our scale factor. How do you turn an 8 into a 256? So we're going to do 256 divided by 8. Figure out that scale factor is 32. I'm going to write that right here in my box. Okay, so now multiply both of these numbers by 32 and we can get the rest of this proportion. 1 times 32, well, that's not too tough, 32. 7 times 32 gives us 224, looks like. Always a good idea to make sure these add up. 2 plus 4 is 6, 3 plus 2 is 5, 2. Okay, it looks like we're good there. Now let's go back and reread that last question. How many voted for hockey? Oh, there we go. 32 voted for hockey. Okay, so that's how you do that one. Let's look at part D. Students attended the No Tardy Party and 11 of 18 students won a prize. Okay, 11 out of 18 won a prize. So 11's a part and 18 is the whole. And we don't know what the other part is. So 1 didn't win, and the whole. And again, you label these however makes sense to you, okay? If 217 did not win a prize, okay, so did not win, over here, 217. How many did win a prize and how many attended altogether? Okay, so we've got bits of missing information up here and down here and here. We should start with this one. In fact, if you want to pause the camera and give this a shot on your own, now would be a great time to hit pause, see what you come up with, and then come back and check it with me, okay? All right, so hopefully you found an answer. So first of all, what goes in this circle? 11 plus what equals 18? Yeah, it's going to be a 7, right. And now you need to figure out how the 7 becomes 217. What is the scale factor? So I don't know what 7 times something equals 217, but I can figure it out by dividing. So we're going to do 217 divided by 7, and that gives me 31. So 31 is my scale factor. I'll write it like that. So I know that I need to multiply how many won by 31. So 31 times 11 gives me this part of the proportion. And then I kind of have choices here. I can do 18 times 31, or I can add these together. Let's just add them up really quick, and then we'll double check by multiplying. How about that? So I think it's 558, but let's do 18 times 31 to be sure. 18 times 31, 558. Looks like we got it. If you got 558 also, awesome work. If you didn't, go back and see if you can figure out where maybe something went wrong. Because if you can find your mistake, you are learning twice as much. Let's go on to part E. Elkridge Middle School will welcome 156 new students this year. So, okay, 5 out of 13 of them will be boys. Okay. Gotcha. So how many more girls will enter the school than boys? Okay, so let's take this apart. This is like the total of their real world situation, but this is the ratio that they're working with. So 5 out of 13 will be boys. So is this part to part or part to whole? As you might guess, it's part to whole. So 5 is the part that's boys and 13 is the whole. So let's write a 5 up here for boys. Let's write a 13 down here for the whole. And then this is going to be the girls. And we don't know how many girls, but we're going to figure it out. And then that other number that was given to us is 156. That's going to be also, let's see, it says 156 new students. So that is in the whole category. So we need to write it over here. Okay, now first of all, we need to figure out what number goes there. 5 plus what equals 13? Or you could say 13 minus 5 equals, and you know you're going to get an 8. Now let's figure out our scale factor. So 13 times what equals 156? 156 divided by 13 should give us that answer, and it is 12. So writing that in our box there. And now it says in the question, how many more girls will enter the school than boys? So when you have to figure out how many more than, you definitely need both of these numbers. So let's just go ahead and figure out them both. So 5 times 12 is going to be 60, and 8 times 12 is going to be 96. Add that up again, make sure, yeah, it looks like all of our math is good. And when you're trying to figure out how many more, then you're going to subtract. So we're going to take the number of girls, subtract the number of boys, basically 96 minus 60, and that's going to give us 36 more girls than boys. Okay, so that's that. We're going to do this the same way. You're going to work on problems 1 through 10. When I say the same way, I mean the same way as we did the part-to-part ones. So you're going to work on 1 through 10 for me for today. And then tomorrow you're going to grab the remaining problems. So go ahead and get started on those. Let me know if you have any questions. As always, I love hearing from you, and I hope you did great on the exercise on the worksheet. And thank you for watching. See you next time. Bye.